Hello there, welcome to Cosmoronic number 4. It's been a month, and I said I would do this every second week. Sorry, I guess. But I made it up to you, because we got Wolf for this one. How are you, man?
I am doing good. How are you?
About as good as I could be. I mean, it's the dream to be able to just record a podcast while sitting in your pajamas. And it's overcast as well, which means that I'm even happier. Because I'm one of those weird people who likes it when it's raining and cloudy.
Well, yeah, that's because you live in like a literal hell.
I wouldn't say a literal hell. It's more like a it's more like a figurative hell.
Oh, that's a deep meme.
Well, actually, because for those of you who don't know, Wolf has said that he will never come to Australia because he's so deeply afraid of the animals.
It's not that I'm afraid. It's that I exercise caution around a country that has a bunch of things that might kill me.
Oh well, it's only about 60 or 70% of the animals, so you're okay.
In fairness, my desire to go to Australia plummeted after I met you because you're the one that introduced me to like 80% of the things that will kill me if I
Oh
go there.
yes. I remember we were talking about spiders, and you said something like, "Is there like a spider with a giant red arrow on its back or something?" And then I was like, well," and then I think that sealed the deal for you.
I was just shitting at that point, and then you said it was real, and I was like, "Oh." I
Yeah,
still remember when I thought platypuses were friendly
yeah.
looking animals, and
Platypuses
then
are
you
the
told me they're
opposite of
horrible.
friendly, guys. They are extremely hostile, and they have a pincer that if they strike you with it, it's going to be so painful that morphine will not work for about 4 months. So if you ever see a platypus, don't pat it. Don't go up to it saying, "Hey, how are you, buddy?" You gotta fucking turn tail and run in the opposite direction.
I mean, look, if there is any proof that God doesn't exist, it's Australia.
Well, I think Jay said that Australia was God's beta test for all the animals.
And he forgot to hit delete after
Well,
making
he's just
them.
like, fuck it. I got shit to do. I only got 7 days to do this shit, even though I'm omnipotent. Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah,
We're not meant to get into that sort of thing. Um,
yeah, that's bad talk. We
that's
can't
edgy
have
talk,
bad
isn't it?
talk.
I,
It's edgy if you use your brain.
it's funny. On the subject of deadly animals, a couple of days ago was World Snake Day, and I was just
Wait,
yeah.
hold on. World Snake Day that
Yeah,
exists?
yeah, and I was sitting there and I'm like, why is this not our national holiday? Why is this not a national holiday that we celebrate here? We got some really cool snakes, and by cool, I
Why is it
mean,
a
I wouldn't want to
national
touch them.
holiday in the first place?
No, it's
Doesn't
not,
make
but
any
I wish
sense.
it was. I don't know, I saw it
Uh,
on Twitter, and it must be true if it's on Twitter.
oh, well, Twitter makes up a holiday every other week.
Yeah, because the day after there was another World Something Day, and I was like, so is every day something? Every day is a
I
World Something Day.
remember I remember there was like National Cheeseburger Day like four times in the same year, and I was like, guys, you're just making up excuses to go get a cheeseburger, aren't you?
you, your mom's like,
As if
"I
you need
thought
an
you said you were gonna
excuse.
diet, Jimmy. It's World Burger Day, Mom. I gotta go."
Yeah, I remember actually using that as an excuse to get a burger one time, and then it happened like a month later, and I was like, I'm pretty sure this already happened.
I feel like this is a ruse. Fucking hell,
I feel
World
like I'm being
Burger Day.
manipulated.
Come on.
Uh, can't wait until National Pizza Day.
Can
That
you?
actually exists, according to Twitter.
Oh, come on. Is it an Italian national holiday or is it like an American thing?
No, I'm pretty sure it's just a Twitter national holiday.
Okay. Is it? I feel like this is the easiest way to do whatever you want. Like, if you have enough followers, you could just start National Fuck Me Day, and then just people will line up in front of your house, just like ready to go.
National, like, I don't know, National Read Day,
That'd be a good
National
one.
Brian.
National
Oh,
Read
National
Day.
Brian Reed is a terrible writer day.
Oh, what?
National Insult Ryan Johnson Day.
Just a whole
National The
day
Last
dedicated
Jedi.
to the guy who wrote Halo 5.
Just to remember, yeah, this was the original Ryan Johnson.
I mean, Yeah, Halo 5 is the last Jedi of the Halo. Like, it is the last Jedi before the last Jedi in terms of ruining Halo. And with Halo
Ruining
Infinite...
anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just... I was looking forward to that game too, and then when I beat the campaign in like 5.5 hours on heroic difficulty, and was just sort of like my jaw agape at what I was watching. And people are excited for Halo Infinite. It's like, this is a follow-up to Halo 5. How the fuck are they meant to reconcile that?
It's a follow-up to every 343 game, and 343 is yet to make a good game.
I guess there's just, I'm not convinced, especially with only like 5 minutes of footage.
And not even gameplay footage, it's cutscenes.
Yeah, like in-engine.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, look at our pretty graphics, and it's like, okay, so how's the gameplay going to be? Is the story going to be good? I know it's probably not, because you haven't been capable of writing a good one yet.
I guess it depends. I mean, if they got Joe Staten back, I'd be a little bit more confident about it, but I'm pretty sure Joe Staten...
I'd be optimistic, but
yeah,
I mean...
Well, yeah, because he's not the only guy who would be writing it. He'd be with, like, a team, and he had people who worked with him on the old Halo games, but they don't work at 343. They've gone elsewhere. They're at Bungie, or Marty's left.
I mean, I'm sure that if they got Joe Staten, it would be the best 343 game.
Yeah.
But so far, the best story they've been able to produce is Halo Wars 2, which was basically, let's go to the Ark, kill brutes. Okay, we're done. That's the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
There's no nuance. There's no good character development. There's no good characters in the first place. There's like an AI who's a lesbian, and it's like, oh, great. Why are you here?
I mean,
what a worthless non-story.
They're just kind of treading water, which I guess is...
I don't even know how they're doing that.
Well, I guess because the thing is Microsoft clearly wants Halo to exist perpetually in the same way that Mario exists perpetually, but the difference is that Mario has a timeless element to it because there isn't a story that is of any importance, and it's sort of... It's like The Simpsons. Every episode is its own self-contained thing, and there might be loose threads from previous stories, but you can keep telling Mario stories forever because nobody's really in it for the story anyway. Whereas Halo is about story, which means that it has to end at some point. You can't keep doing it forever.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it a few weeks ago, how Zelda, at least to my understanding, like the stories aren't connected. They're like their own thing.
Yeah.
But Halo has been an overarching connected plot since the beginning. And they're just dragging it out over and over and over again, when it really should have just ended at 3.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm happy with ODST and Reach. I know Reach is a debatable one, but I'm happy with both.
Well, I mean, like the main plot should have ended at 3.
Oh, yeah, right. Like continuity.
Sure, yeah. I mean, like Halo 3 ODST is a pretty good supplementary one, and even though I don't like Reach, I mean, technically it's part of the lore, so I at least understand its significance.
Mm-hmm.
But it really shouldn't have continued after that.
But no, people wanted Master Chief back. It's like, you got him. You happy now?
343. Bungie should have just killed Master Chief or kept him alive and had him retire at the end of Halo 3. Then we would have had an excuse to not have these games.
They would have found a way to bring him out of retirement. Unfortunately, he probably had to go at the end of Halo 3 to prevent him from being dragged up again.
Oh god, yeah, please you should have just killed him then.
Because the thing is there seems to now be this mindset that people want Chief. I like Chief, but I don't... it doesn't have to be him. I mean, ODST and Reach have different characters, and the stories work fine with those different playable characters. I mean, let a new hero emerge, but make them interesting. Don't make Spartan Locke.
Or even better, don't make more Halo games.
Well, yeah. I
wanted the series to die for such a long time, dude. It's like, just let it die with its small shred of dignity, please.
Well, you compare Halo to Uncharted, where Uncharted ended with a conclusion that was written with the idea that it would be the last one. And if they're going to make more Uncharted games, it's not going to be about Nathan Drake. He is definitively done. They wrote the story to
Yeah, I
make it
think
to
the
where he's
ending Uncharted.
definitively done.
Yeah, and Uncharted 4 is a pretty fitting ending to the character. I think that
Yeah.
making another game with him would just be redundant.
Mm-hmm. But that's what I mean. It's like, isn't it interesting that Sony has a willingness to end franchises, whereas Microsoft really doesn't want to? It's funny because Sony seems to be okay with ending franchises, which I guess some people might find disappointing, but I don't mind if it means that it doesn't get dragged through the mud. Like, I mean, because a great example would be, look at what's happened with Ratchet and Clank. It's just like, you probably could have ended with, like, deadlocked, and I think I would have been content. Maybe a crack in time, or at the very least, like, just end with a crack in time, but it has to keep going and going and going. Man, now I'm getting sad just thinking about the reboot of Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, I mean, with Microsoft, they've only ever had like two winning exclusives, being Halo and Gears of
Yeah.
War. And Gears of War was only ever really respected for its gameplay. No one in their right mind cares about its horrible excuse of a story. And even that, I mean, that series died with Gears 3. No one's really given a shit after that. And Halo's been hemorrhaging for a long time. A lot of people in the current community don't like to acknowledge it, but Halo Reach was really the game that got a lot of people to start drifting away from Halo. Halo 4 was just the one that was like the bullet to the brain, the final kill move. It was so bad that it drove away most of the community. And Microsoft is so unwilling to make some new IPs that they just don't really have anything but those two games. That's why we're getting Gears 5, the game with absolutely no hype behind it at all.
Yeah, I've
And
not
Halo
noticed
Infinite.
any buzz for Gears 5. Gears absolutely seems like a dead franchise.
I mean, I'm always like, every now and again, I'm reminded that Gears 5 even exists, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's happening, isn't it?
And I know that there was recent discussion because the creative director of the game sort of made it to where there will be no smoking in the game, which a lot of people find a bit strange in a video game that involves murder and swearing.
Was there even that much smoking in the previous Gears games? Because I
mean,
can't
I've only
remember.
played Gears of War 1. I don't really remember it. I don't know. It's
I mean,
just
I'm trying.
it's like just because the creative director had bad experiences in life involving other people who smoke, so it's like, yes, I understand, that's very sad. But like,
But
I'm sure that somebody could
have
turn
to
around
separate
and
your life.
well, the thing is what if somebody said, well, my dad got shot when I was young, so we're not going to have any violence in Gears of War anymore.
That's stupid.
It's just, yes, it's very sad that something bad happened to you in your life involving smoking. Like, genuinely, I feel really bad for you. You do need to try and separate that from your work, though, because, let's get real. If somebody were playing a video game, saw a character smoke and said, oh, fuck, that looks cool, I'm gonna do that, then there's probably not a lot stopping them from smoking in the first place.
You know what's strange is that these are the same people that are trying to legalize weed, which, full disclosure, obviously I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we understand the risks. Like we know that smoking weed is really only beneficial for you in its medical uses.
Yeah.
Whereas smoking it, I mean, it has, sure, there's like benefits to it, but there's detriments, the same detriments as smoking tobacco as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand that, and I only smoke it like once a week at the absolute most. I don't understand why people can't make their own informed decisions on things.
Well, it's just moderation. That's what it is. It's the same as, people will have alcohol and will recognize it's like, yeah, it's probably not good to have this all the time. And that's why you just have less of it. I mean, in reality, I find the whole legalizing marijuana, I kind of see it as a no-brainer. I mean, if drinking alcohol is legal and the number of deaths that result from overuse of alcohol, then surely weed doesn't even compare to that.
Yeah, just legalize, tax, and regulate it.
Yeah, exactly. And then it helps the economy, and then, you can build that wall faster. That wall's never gonna get built. There's no
Or
way.
just fix the roads in my state. My state's like infamous for having some of the worst roads in the entire country.
Just like, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't often hear in American politics people talking about infrastructure projects, which are really important for a country that massive.
I was reading this article the other day about how our infrastructure is so bad that, like, if there was some huge hacking attempt, it could potentially knock out large parts of the US power grid. And
Right.
it's like, what if we invested in that to prevent that from happening rather than using really outdated technology?
I think
Like, our
Watch Dogs use
infrastructure is
that as a
bad.
premise. I think Watch Dogs actually use that as a premise. Wasn't there a big there was a blackout in like 1977 or something that knocked out the entire Northeast, and it was just a one hacker, and it caused a lot of damage. I mean, admittedly though, when it comes to American politics, the issue that I observe is there's very little talk of the budget and the fact that you guys are in debt. Not only are you in debt, you're in a lot of debt, and it's increasing. It's never going down. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's like posturing on both sides of this is how we're going to lower the debt, and then the debt just keeps on raising.
I don't know. It's
Nothing
just
ever gets
in
finished.
Australian politics, there's this very clear dichotomy that exists. The idea is Labor, which is our left wing party, gets us into debt, but introduces a lot of policies and things like that. Like they're basically the reason why Australia wasn't hit so hard by the GFC, and then Liberal will get us out of debt, which I think they actually have now. I think we're meant to be in a surplus, and I look at that and I'm like, America's never going to be in a surplus, at least not. You know, when I
Not in
watch
the
these
near
debates,
future, anyway.
oh no way! Especially if you got people talking like, I'm sort of pro Medicare, obviously because in Australia we have it and it's beneficial for people who can't afford private insurance. So I'm for that. Um, I'm not really for like free education. I don't really think you're owed post secondary education.
Mhm.
And what's the other one? Paying off the debt for people who have it. And my thing is,
Yeah,
I'm sitting there like, how the fuck are you gonna pay for this?
yeah. I think it was Jill Stein. She was like, "We're going to not only make it so that college is free, but everyone that has debt, they just won't have it anymore." And it's like, how the hell are you going to do that?
Well, you'd have to start taxing. You'd have to raise tax. And America's tax is low compared to a lot of other Western countries, so maybe that's an option. But I don't. Will anybody
I'm
do
no
that?
economist, so
Well,
there'd be a lot of
let's put it this
backlash.
way,
I,
right?
I don't know how
Do you know
much it
how
would
much? Do
be.
you know how much the average tax rate is in the U.S.? Like, I know it's state by state, but do you know what it is in your state?
Um, I'm really bad with economics, so I
Oh, it's
don't
okay.
think.
I do
Yeah,
hear that it
I don't
hovers
know.
around 10%, is what I've often heard. But it
I
varies from
think
state to state.
mine. I can look it up.
Oh yes, of
Tax
course, Google,
rate.
best friend.
Yes, this is it. Okay, so mine is 4.25%
That's nothing. Holy shit. That's barely
withholding
anything.
rate.
We pay at least 30% tax in Australia. Wow. 4%.
And
That's
you
so
would,
low.
yeah, and then there's we have horrible infrastructure here.
Yeah, well that's what I mean is part because the reality is like high tax will net you a lot of benefits. Like you look at Scandinavia, those countries have very high tax, very high tax. But they got a lot of good infrastructure, a lot of good social programs, and you know government programs and things like that.
Yeah, like here's the thing. Like when weed was legalized here, I was like, okay, if you tax this, then we can actually maybe get our roads fixed because our roads are horrible. They may as well all be dirt roads for how shit they are.
Jesus.
Um, like I've genuinely driven on dirt roads that are better than the paved roads here. The problem is that all the counties are able to opt out of having weed in them. Like my county opted out of allowing weed to be sold here,
Lame.
but they're begging. Like my town begs for money all the time, and it's like, if you allowed like a couple weed shops here and use the tax money, you wouldn't have to beg people for donations to fix your shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like so stupid. Guys, just use your brains, please. I know it's hard nowadays, but you
basically
could
free
try.
money. You're just getting free money, like at that point.
And especially with, I mean, I've lived here for a while. I know quite a few people that smoke weed. I mean, people would kill to have some weed shops around. Instead, they have to go like 45 minutes away from here just to find the nearest weed shop.
Damn. That's a long way to go just to get some weed.
Yeah. That or they just like do it as we've always been doing it, which is just buying it illegally.
Right,
although
which
it's
is not what
legal
they
to smoke it now.
Well, that's the thing. It's like you surely would prefer it if people don't buy it illegally as a government, if you know that, it's just not comparable to things like cocaine or meth, where they're just entirely just horrible for you. This is something that's pretty moderate, at least to what I understand, just from what I've learned about it in research.
Yeah, like I have absolutely no problem with not legalizing meth.
Oh yeah,
or heroin.
Just ruin Walter White's entire business operation.
Yeah, let's not make that widespread. That'd be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a huge step away from weed. That's not even close to the same thing.
And plus, like, the reality is, if you make it legal, then you can take out some of the negative attributes of weed, which, the ways that it's prepared illegally versus the ways that it would be prepared legally, the requirements that would be on it. Just do it. Just legalize it. Come on. Just do it. You have no reason not to. Free money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll make people happier. It'll increase a bunch of tax dollars that we can put toward fixing our horrible infrastructure, particularly in this state that has like horrible infrastructure everywhere.
I do find it interesting fixing Flint. I know that Mauler says this a lot, but Trump could just fix Flint's water. And
dude, he would win so many. The amount of votes he would win just from that. I mean, not even just in this state.
No,
like people would look at
be
that
like, "Wow, look at that!" Yeah, it's
that would be such a huge thing for him.
Well, that's the thing, right?
There would literally be nothing other than great.
If you fix the water in Flint, everybody in Flint would vote for Trump, and you could tell them anything, but they'd be like, "Dude, he like fixed our water. I'm voting for him." And you'd have a lot of people
my state
outside.
already went to Trump.
Oh yeah, Michigan is a Trump state, isn't it?
But yeah, it would be even more so if we had that big of a win from him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd have sympathy from other states because they'd be like, "Hey, Trump's actually doing something really good and helping people."
Yeah, and it probably wouldn't even cost that much, like in reality.
I mean, I'm sure it would cost a hefty chunk.
Yeah, sure, but how much money, of all the money that America spends, the amount it spends on military, you cut like 1% of that and just use it on Flint, you probably have some to spare.
Or just do something.
Yeah,
anything. But I mean, we had I want to say a few weeks of general aid when the story broke, and then people gradually forgot about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the news cycle, isn't it? People care and then they forget, but the problem still exists.
Yeah. Thus is the way of life. Always fun.
You know what else is fun? Game of Thrones getting nominated for Emmys, including one for Best Writing. How does that make you feel?
Well, I hate it. I actually read a story just before we started this that Dave and Dan aren't going to be they're not going to Comic-Con like they were going to.
Yeah, I mean, why the hell would they go? They're just going to get railed with
oh god, the instant they come on stage, it'd just be horrible.
It'd be a chorus of boos, probably. Yeah, I mean, I never even understood why they would, to be honest with you.
Hell, that would be best possible scenario, that they just get booed.
Yeah. They'll probably still be going to the Emmys, though.
Way worse. Oh, please, for the love of God, no.
And wasn't it the episode that they got nominated for was The Iron Throne, and that was the last episode of the show, right?
The one with 14 minutes of talking.
Yeah, exactly.
In 57 or 58 minutes of absolutely nothing. It's you chose the episode that was the absolute safest because it was the one with the least amount of writing put into it.
And they got nominated for 3 episodes for best directing, including the Battle of Winterfell one, the one that nobody could see.
Mm-hmm. You know, I actually saw a 4K video of it, and in 4K you can actually see it.
Oh, that's handy.
So it turns out that you just need a TV that not many people have to be able to see it clearly. It's like, that's wonderful, guys. I'm so glad that you have such a horrible flaw. I mean, I'm okay with certain things getting Emmys. The actors are really great, the music is really great, the special effects is really great. It's everything except for the writing that's really great. And I mean, if someone won an Emmy for Best Actor and it was from Game of Thrones, or if Raymond Djawadi won Best Music, like, that would totally be earned, and I'd be happy with that. But good God, don't give them the Emmy for writing. That would just be an insult.
I guess I just find it interesting because this year is the first year that BoJack Horseman's been nominated for an Emmy, and of course my mind is just blown by that. It's just, is this a blind spot that the Emmys have where they just forget things or nominate things that shouldn't get nominated? Like, BoJack Horseman is one of the best animated shows on TV right now, and it took them 5 years to get their first nomination. And they have had a lot of good episodes before that. And so I'm really happy that they've been nominated, but it feels like it took them forever to do it. Meanwhile, Game of Thrones gets nominated every year because it's Game of Thrones. You know, even for writing. Well, yeah, but I mean, they still did. They got a nomination for Best Writing. Imagine if they won.
This will be the end, finally. Oh, Jesus Christ. The internet would implode.
I think so, too, because Game of Thrones seems to be the one that people generally agree is bad. It feels like the tide really turned with that show, with in terms of the whole quality, subjective, objective thing.
You know, what's kind of crazy is I think people would be more willing to watch a Rian Johnson Star Wars movie over a Dave and Dan Star Wars movie at this point.
Yeah, I don't think people are very
less hate for the...
I think there is less hate for The Last Jedi versus Game of Thrones. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Game of Thrones is like at least 80% united against it. Whereas The Last Jedi, it's like just a little past half and half.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 55-45. Whereas with Game of Thrones, it's completely different.
No,
Most
I know,
people
because
hate it.
I talk to even, regular people who aren't super into discussions about film and TV, and even they weren't really impressed by it.
I mean, when you've lost the normies, that's when things have gone downhill.
Well, I mean, I watched a video. It was like, there's this bar that reacts to episodes of Game of Thrones. They play it, and it's this bar full of people watching.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
And they played it at the scene where Daenerys just starts using the dragon and laying waste to King's Landing, and you just see their faces, man. Their faces just sink. They're so distraught, and it's just like, wow, what happened?
When you can't even get a bunch of drunks to like your shitty show.
Well, I think the thing was, because a lot of these, because isn't that Yes Queen Slay shit, isn't that like partly derived from Game of Thrones, because, Daenerys being a queen or whatever and all that stuff?
I have absolutely no idea.
Well, I think that's where the saying was derived from, and so it's like, yes, Queen, slay, and then she does, and it's like, no, wait, no, like, what are you doing?
We didn't mean it this way.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, just, and then you watch that behind the scenes thing with the actor who I can't remember who he plays because I don't watch this show that much. The actor who got killed off, the really smart one, Varys, wasn't it? Or Varys?
Varys and Littlefinger, yeah.
Yeah, like you just watch him as he reads the script, in the when they read the script at the table read. He's finished, he just throws it away. And it's just like, oh, I'm so sorry, man.
You can just see like the utter disappointment on his face.
I feel really bad for him. Just imagine dedicating like 8 years of your life.
Involved.
Yeah,
I feel bad for the guy that played Jaime Lannister, Nikolai. Well, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
I know who you're talking about, though.
Yeah, he there's like interviews of him where he's saying that he was fighting against Dave and Dan on the decisions they were making for his character,
Mm-hmm.
but they had the ultimate say and he couldn't convince them otherwise. It's like,
Jeez.
how defeating must that be?
Yeah, I mean, and if anything, you may well know more about your character than the writer does at this point.
I mean, the entire job of an actor is to become a different person. So when they say that they are acting out of character, maybe you should give the actors a little bit more credence.
Well, especially when we're talking about such good actors, actors who've been nominated for Emmys like year after year after year, who people love and who clearly know what they're doing. Like surely at some point you're like, maybe I'm forgetting something here. Maybe I've overlooked something. Because your focus is on the whole show, whereas their focus is on the character. And if they tell you something's wrong, you really need to listen to them, I feel.
Yeah, not doing so is a big mistake, as The Last Jedi taught us.
Oh, yes. Good lord, The Last
Oh,
Jedi.
poor Mark. Poor Mark.
Well, the thing is, because I get the impression that he's just trying to keep everybody happy and optimistic, but I'm pretty confident he doesn't like The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't know if it was recently. It might have just been I recently watched a video talking about it. But he said something to the effect in a tweet that he was liking the discussion on both sides, people who liked it and didn't like it. And it's like, I mean, I can't look at that video of after the premiere where he just looks like he watched his son get butchered on camera or something.
Well, I mean, it's his baby.
How can you look
Luke
at that?
Skywalker is his baby, and
it's the thing he's known for.
It's
Everyone
his
knows
legacy.
who Luke Skywalker
Yeah.
is. So to destroy that in that way, I mean, he definitely looked like he just watched his whole life get just butchered in his.
Well, did you? It's funny you say that, right? Because that sort of shows a lack of respect for the original characters. And Admiral Akbar is a good example of just getting tossed aside.
I love that clip of the actor who was like, "Who's this purple-haired chick throwing me out the airlock or whatever?" The interviewer was like, "Let's just be positive, okay?"
Well, I think the guy who plays Admiral Akbar, I watched a video where he said that on his last day on set ever as Admiral Akbar, there was no thank you, no like thanks for everything you've done for this series, thanks for your contributions. And it's not like Akbar is not. He is a supporting character. He's not a minor character. He is important in Return of the Jedi. And all he got to do was say it's a wrap in the Akbar voice. And the actor said that he was fucking crying underneath the mask because he was so upset about just the fact that nobody seemed to give a shit about him. It's just like, dude.
Oh, that's sad.
That's really sad, man, because he's clearly very attached to Star Wars.
I mean, how can you not give respect to a guy who's been with the series for that long?
He's a legacy actor at this point. You can't not say anything about him. Oh, it's a wrap. That's what you get to say, and then fuck off. Like, really?
It really pissed me off that people were saying that, oh, Akbar is just a meme. He's not even a good character. And it's like,
he led the rebel fleet against the fucking Empire in the final battle that determined the fate of the galaxy. Not important. Just the meme.
Just because he got memed doesn't mean that he's not a good character. Sure, he's not as well fleshed out as like half the characters in Star Wars, but
he's still an entertaining character.
A lot of people remember him for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, like, people meme things that they like a lot of the time.
I mean, hell, look at all the Chernobyl memes, and that show is really well loved for the most part.
At least that show got nominated for an Emmy. I still need to watch it.
It's a pretty fun show.
Is that based on a book, or it's Voices from Chernobyl, isn't it? Or am I getting it wrong?
Yeah, it took some parts from Voices of Chernobyl.
Actually, I'm glad that you brought that up, because adaptation has been the discussion of late.
Oh, God.
In discussing critique, particularly with regards to Spider-Man. Just to set the record straight for everybody, I think MCU Spider-Man is great. I think Homecoming is like the second best film in the MCU. And I think Far From Home is pretty good too, though I'll have to rewatch it to sort of affirm that. But there are a lot of people who hate the MCU Spider-Man movies, and many of the arguments are derived from the comic books, which is important when it comes to the discussion of quality of material on its own versus its quality as an adaptation. And you probably have some thoughts on this, don't you?
I do. I have many thoughts because, like, as you know, I love to read books, and I have quite a few movies I hate because of how badly they were adapted. And for the most part, the badly adapted movies are also just really bad movies in general, so it's really easy to shit on them. Like, The Dark Tower is just a horrible piece of shit film. There's, like, nothing good about it, but I hate it mostly because of that, of the adaptation standpoint. So something that I've been severely misquoted on quite a lot is that I think The Expanse is a bad show because it's a bad adaptation. That's not my opinion. I don't like The Expanse because I think it's a bad adaptation. But I think it is a bad show because it has horrible acting, really terrible dialogue, really shitty special effects, really butchered pacing, and a bunch of other issues. The reason I think it's bad is not because it's a bad adaptation. The reason I don't like it is because it's a bad adaptation. Like, let's say in another universe, The Expanse is the best show ever made, right? I still wouldn't like it because it shits on the books. And so I don't watch it because of that. I'm not going to waste my time watching something I don't like because it ruins something that I really do like. And when it comes to this Spider-Man argument, like I obviously wasn't there for that debate, but I'm okay if someone says I don't like Spider-Man Homecoming because it butchers the comics. I don't know anything about the comics, so I can't speak on that front, but I'm okay if people make that argument because I think it's unlike Rags, who's been vocal against that. I think that is a valid argument for not liking it. However, it's not a valid argument for saying it's bad. Just because an adaptation is bad doesn't mean that the objective standalone quality of the film is bad.
Well, I mean, the good example would be The Haunting of Hill House. It has nothing to do with what it's based on, but it's a really fantastic show.
Same with The Shining. It's a horrible adaptation of the book, but it's a really good movie. The big problem I have with the arguments given by Nerdrotic and Geeks and Gamers and world-class bullshitters and that whole crowd is that they're making objective statements about the movie, but qualifying them with adaptation arguments, which adaptation arguments can be perfectly fine if you're talking about it from an adaptation standpoint, but they are not valid arguments in regards to the objective standalone quality of the film.
Yeah, it's
like at least be consistent with it. And Nerdrotic said something so just impossibly stupid. Well, he said quite a few things that were impossibly stupid, like the whole he's smarter, I guess, because he's older than the rest of us, which okay.
Yeah, see, I picked up on that
talking
one.
To you was worthless.
It was really, he was lucky that nobody called him on that, because that's not something you should say to people ever.
I was talking about it with Mahler, and it's probably a good thing I wasn't there because I wouldn't have just burned a bridge with him. I would have blown it up. There would not be a foundation left of a bridge. I would have called him out for being such a retard. It's unimagineable. I can't.
Do you want this? Do you want this in the podcast when it comes up?
Dude, I don't care.
Oh,
he said
right.
that.
Okay.
He unironically said that. Like, dude, you cannot make that argument. Not to mention, I mean, he's so inconsistent. He said that because Spider-Man is more well known, use the adaptation standard for saying that it's a bad movie. But in regards to The Expanse, which he admits is not a good adaptation of the books, he doesn't use that same argumentation because it's not as well known as Spider-Man. Which is like
I know what you mean. It was like as though there's a point that a piece of media reaches where it is now above the threshold of you can't change it and you can't do different things.
I mean, let's just apply the same thing to The Shining.
Well, you could just say that about anything. You could say that about anything that you wanted at that point. I mean, what is your threshold? Is there an objective threshold like, like the expiry of a copyright or something? Is it 50 years, 70 years? What is it?
Yeah, that's a different argument in itself, but I mean, just I mean, you can't use that argument so inconsistently. I mean, it's already not a good argument, but at least if you're going to argue something, be consistent about it. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're going to say that, then you have to say that The Shining is a bad movie. Just because, but that it's not though.
Well, the thing
It's
is
a bad adaptation, but it's not a bad movie.
when I was listening to these arguments, which I've been seeing a lot of people say things like Spider-Man shouldn't do this, he shouldn't do that, and of course, shouldn't. They're talking about the comics, and of course, my response to that would be, that's fine to say if you're talking about a comic, but this is a film. It is not the comic. Spider-Man can be whatever he is defined to be like. That's just how it works. That's how it works with and it would be also to suggest that if you wrote a story that was fantastic, you just wrote this incredible story from beginning, middle, and end, and then at the last minute you change their name to Peter Parker. It's just like, oh, it's bad now. It's,
Like it doesn't change the writing quality.
no, it doesn't. It only changes your perception based on external media, which is fine for adaptation, but not for quality.
Yeah, and I saw the argument made that like if they did something like in the Lord of the Rings made Frodo and Sam black and gay and trans, then by our standard we would have to say, oh, it's good, just because of that. Which objectively, I mean, I don't think it would be good, but if we looked at it completely objectively and it was good in some universe where this even happened, then it'd be like, yeah, it's good. But I would never watch that just because I would see that Sam and Frodo are gay black trans people, and I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm not even going to waste my time watching it because I'm too attached to the Lord of the Rings to even waste my time with it. Like with the Tolkien movie, like I was telling Molly the other day, the people that are attached to that movie, like the director, the writer, and Nicholas Holt, like anything that their names are attached to in the future, I genuinely don't care to watch it because I think it's just that disrespect.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to disrespect someone's legacy like that, then I don't care about anything you do in your worthless life. I don't think you deserve my money.
I mean, like, you could probably say that about the director and the writer, but I don't know if you can say that about the actor, like for Nicholas Holt. Is it his fault that the script was like
he
that? He
took the role.
Well, I mean, I haven't watched the film, so do you want to sort of elaborate?
I'm not going to either.
Oh, you have. I mean, you haven't seen it either.
I refuse to.
Right. It was just because of things that you heard about what it's about and like the story that it tells.
Yeah, because they cut out Tolkien's Catholicism, which I mean, from the beginning of this podcast,
that was always really important.
I mean, I don't care about religion at all. I think it's silly and stupid, but if it's really, really important to someone's life and legacy, cutting it out is incredibly disrespectful. It would be like, I don't plan on making atheism a part of my life and legacy because it's just not that.
Well, imagine if you made a Christopher Hitchens biopic and you just neglected to mention that he was an atheist and it never came up. It'd just be like, yeah, that's a little bit of a weird omission.
Yeah, and I mean, if in some other universe, like atheism really directed my whole life and everything, and people instead decide to cut that completely out, I'd be offended by that. So by proxy, I am offended that they would cut out such an integral part of Tolkien's life and legacy, and instead put it all on World War One and say that that was what everything, all of Middle Earth was based on, when he said innumerable times that's not what it was based on. It's insulting. It's really, really stupid. I don't think those people, anyone that made that movie, they don't deserve respect in my eyes.
I mean, the thing is when you're doing a biopic about Tolkien, you're doing a biopic on, I think, inarguably the most influential writer of the 20th century.
I mean, it's arguable, but I would say he's the best writer ever.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, it'd probably be more arguable to make that point, but I'd say, like, in terms of the most influential writers of the 20th century, I can't I don't think that there is any other. I mean, his influence can be seen far and wide across fantasy literature in general. Um, it's such,
Yeah, I mean, all fantasy that came out after him owes everything to him.
or at least owes a large part to him, depending on whatever kind of thing they're doing. But especially high fantasy, the vast majority of high fantasy shares common elements with Lord of the Rings. It's a legacy. It's a really important legacy, and
And
you
you
kind of owe
cannot
it to
fuck
him.
that up.
Well, I mean, what did the estate of Tolkien? What do they think of the film? Do you know?
Well, you kind of want to take whatever the Tolkien estate says with a grain of salt anyway, because they think that the Lord of the Rings movies are the worst things ever made.
Really? What?
Well, yeah, Christopher Tolkien unironically said that.
What?
Which, I mean, I just don't think they understand film. And I think the Lord of the Rings films are pretty good adaptations of the work and are pretty faithful and get all the important things right about it. But as I understand it, the people that made the Tolkien movie didn't even consult the estate or look into the actual biography of Tolkien to
Really?
make the movie. So, of course, the estate completely rejects it, but just looking into it and doing the research I have, it's like that already seems extremely disrespectful.
Oh man, they didn't even. Wow. It's just
Just a shameless cash grab.
when I was in when I was on holiday in the United Kingdom last year, I when I was in Oxford, I just walked past a thing there that was basically it was a big setup for Tolkien's work as he was working on Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Oh yeah, I think you told me about
Yes,
that.
I did because I knew that you would be envious.
I was envious.
Well, it was like it had his original writings. It showed him like with his notebook as he was developing the Elven language and stuff like that. It was and drawing maps and drawing artwork for Sauron. Like I think it had the first illustration that he did for Sauron, and he was a brilliant artist as well, just like supremely talented man. And when I was there, I was just like, this is so great, this is so amazing, and it feels like you wouldn't have difficulty being able to tell a really accurate story about Tolkien because he documented so much of his process.
I believe a bunch of his letters that he sent to fans are around, so that you can see a lot of the inner workings of what he did to all the reasoning he made had for making certain things in Middle Earth, and a lot of that was based on his religion and his what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever it means to know a bunch of languages. It's languages, it's mythologies, it's his own religion. But he was very adamant about saying that the war is not it didn't influence him at all. And it's really insulting to say otherwise, and it's really insulting to cut out such an important part of his character.
I guess it's like, what movie are you trying to tell at that point? Like what movie are you trying to tell at this point? If you do it like
and
that,
overly saturated, like, let's not include the religion part.
Do you think that's politically motivated?
I mean, I can't understand what other motivation would be there.
Yeah, I mean, damn, that's really a shame as well.
This is all coming from an atheist, of course.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about religion. I don't like religion. But you can't cut that out of someone if that was a big part of who they were.
Well, it's just
it's wrong.
Yeah, it's you just got to sort of appreciate that there are people in the world for whom that is really important. I mean, it's kind of the same approach that I take when it comes to like writing. It's just like you got to have some religious characters in your story. I feel like it's kind of inevitable that you're just going to have them, just because enough people are religious that it wouldn't make sense for everybody to be an atheist or just completely devoid of any sort of fundamental.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a focal point of the story.
No, absolutely.
It doesn't even really necessarily need to be mentioned.
No.
But I mean, with the book I'm working on now, I like make little character sheets and like have like the name, the physical attributes, and all that of all the characters. And when I was thinking about it, like I generally like to stray away from religion and politics in my own writing. But when it came to the main character, I was like, I don't think this guy's an atheist. I'm pretty sure this is a pretty devoutly religious person.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't just impose my own values onto another character
No.
because I don't think that's intellectually honest of me or really faithful to the idea of separating my politics and my ideology from my work. I don't want to be like the other authors
Well,
out there.
I was about to say, why don't you just write self-inserts? Just write you, and you're always right because you're the main character.
Boring. That'd be terrible.
Well, I mean, that's a sort of a problem with many stories with like self-insert characters. It's like, it's funny how the main character shares all the same values as you and also happens to be right. It's interesting that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the remember that video I posted about that feminist sci-fi book?
Ah, yes.
Yeah, the influence of her politics is abundantly clear from the get-go, because the whole book, there are no men. There is no mention of men. Women get pregnant just out of nowhere with no explanation for it whatsoever. They like, I'm not shitting you. They abort babies to feed into their organic ships to make their ships bigger.
What?
And it is the most...
What?
There's context for which specific ones they abort, but it's still stupid as all hell. It's the dumbest thing I've ever read in my entire life, and it's like, this is the clearest example I can possibly give of someone who didn't have a vision for a book they really wanted to write. They had a political movement they wanted to push, and just made a whole book out of that, and it's horrible. Like, I'm okay if you want to make an all-female sci-fi book. I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time is The Grey, and that's an all-male movie. Mm-hmm. So I'd be kind of a hypocrite to be like, I don't want any all-female stories in general. If you want to make that, that's fine. But it can't take precedence. Your ideas, your political ideology cannot take precedence over the integrity of the writing, which a lot of SJWs can't seem to understand.
Well, I mean, it's also a thing that you see in like critique of stories as well, particularly in video games, where it's like the political ideology takes precedence over sort of actually examining the story for what it is. I mean, this has happened so many times. Deus Ex was a good example. Mankind Divided, where people just couldn't separate their political. It's a game where you're allowed to sort of choose what your position is, and that's not okay. The game shouldn't let you choose what your position is. Your position should be enforced. And that was a point of criticism for some people of that game, and it's just like, come on. You gotta separate it. And I mean, I also feel it's kind of the same for people who see social justice in everything. You know what I mean? Like, where... I've heard people say that they've seen social justice in Homecoming. I'm just like, I don't see it. I don't really see it.
I guess there's that one line from MJ at the Washington Monument.
Yeah, but even that one is kind of like debatable, because it's actually unclear whether it was made by slaves or not. It's iffy. Even the guard's like sort of iffy, because maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's kind of funny.
I mean, to my understanding, and my understanding comes from a YouTube comment, so take this with a minuscule grain of salt, is that it was only partially made that way, and that if you actually go there, you can see like the bricks are a different color, where like the foundation, I guess, was originally built that way by slaves, and then the rest of it was not.
Okay.
But I've never been there. I haven't done any research into this, so again, take it with a tiny grain of salt.
Fair enough. I just think it's about trying to separate politics from both creation and interpretation of stories. At least
look at the no bullshit video on Infinity War.
Yeah, but I mean,
he unironically...
he's such a retard.
Oh god, he's an idiot of the highest caliber. To say that Vision is like transhuman because he wants to get a rock taken out of his face, or that line where he was like, "There's also a giant midget in this movie." It's like, what? It's like, sometimes you gotta like look at idiots and be like, how could you be that stupid?
But he's amassed like 600,000 subscribers, though. He's got 600,000
worthless idiots.
Like, it's such a bad channel where he makes bad arguments, and then he goes around like saying, "Well, I've got a college degree. I got a degree." It's like, fucking, what does that mean?
Didn't someone say he got like a degree in some really worthless?
Well, I think the joke that I said was, did he get a degree in communications? And then I think someone else said, actually, and I was like, oh god.
The easiest degree aside from gender studies.
Well, I mean, communications, what even is communications? That's why people make jokes about it. It's like, I'm doing communications. What does that mean? What do you do? What is your trade? Your trade is communicating.
And clearly his communication skills are lacking.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, if he did communications, then holy fuck.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you think of Destiny, have you seen the Destiny debate with him?
No, but I imagine that he slaughtered, no bullshit.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I don't like Destiny at all.
Yeah, I don't really, not a big fan.
Destiny was basically doing a troll job of trying to defend incest. And no bullshit was the one that took the call to debate him on it. He lost that debate, and it's such an easy debate to make because all you have to do is say, okay, so children born of incest typically have birth defects. It's really bad for a family dynamic, and you can list all these objective reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of doing that, no bullshit, in all of his utter lack of intelligence, decided to go on about how he has a college degree and that Destiny likes incest rather than giving an actual argument.
Well, the thing is, to my understanding, Destiny will often entertain arguments that he doesn't actually believe just to mess with people and see how they argue.
Yeah, he mostly just does it just to fuck with people, as far as I understand.
Right.
I think it's kind of dumb and a big waste of time.
It is kind of a waste of time, isn't it? Yeah.
But at the same time, it also exposes just how stupid people like No Bullshit are. Not that he doesn't expose himself for that in every single video he makes, but you know.
Well, that's the thing is, I find that there are a lot of ways you can have a discussion which will expose that someone's framework for analysis or critique is a bit flawed. I think Spider-Man Homecoming, incidentally enough, has been a good example because it's like, you have people who were correct on The Last Jedi, but when it comes to this one, it really exposes that they may have just been incidentally correct about Star Wars and that their argumentation has been bad from the start. And that it was just a coincidence.
There's a lot of people that are just incidentally correct. And it's like, I don't want to even really defend Spider-Man Homecoming because it's not even a movie I particularly like. I mean, I think it's fun, but it's nothing I would go out of my way to watch by any stretch. I think most of the MCU is kind of boring. And that's a completely subjective take from me,
right.
But you know, I don't like. Why do I have to defend things I don't like?
I think Godzilla is another good one, a good blind spot, because Godzilla is bad. I enjoyed it, but it's really bad.
Godzilla's always been a really terrible franchise, and people are like, "But it's supposed to be terrible," and it's like, okay.
Well, it's just like, okay, you had fun with it. I had fun with it, but it's really bad. It's real, like Godzilla King of the Monsters is, I consider it to be considerably worse than the original Godzilla movie from 2014. And that movie isn't even very good.
I think I've seen like the very first Godzilla ever made. I've seen the Matthew Broderick Godzilla and the 2014 one. And like all of them have been really bad. And I was going to go see King of the Monsters because the trailers looked genuinely interesting, but then Mahler told me it's terrible. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to save my money. But the 2014 Godzilla is just so terrible.
I think it's okay.
It's just the 1998 one.
I think Godzilla 2014 is okay. It has some interesting things that it does. Like from a cinematography standpoint, lighting, things like that, I think are interesting. And I think Bryan Cranston was good, even though he's only in it for 3 minutes.
My investment in the movie died as soon as he did.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, because when I was watching it, he died. I'm like, oh man, I was here for
Like
you.
you took away the only character in the whole movie.
I do love how the
And then the rest
marketing
of
was
it,
just emphasizing him, and then he dies in 40 minutes. It's like, oh, great.
yeah, and the movie's like, okay, we're gonna make it a bunch of monsters fighting each other. It barely even has that. I
Yeah.
mean, at least if it was a bunch of monsters killing each other, I could be like, all right, this is a fun time. But it's only like, what, 7 or 8 minutes of the actual monsters even being on screen?
Well, the thing is, Godzilla King of the Monsters has a lot more of the monsters being on screen, but the writing is much worse.
Yeah,
So
I
it's kind of
haven't
a
heard
trade-off.
anything good about it.
Well, the thing is, people
And
say, like, oh, why are you in
arguments.
it for story? It's like, well, what do you mean? It is a film. You know, like, there is no reason to just say, well, the story doesn't need to be good.
What's the point of even making a film if you're not going to give it a good story?
And the thing is it's like, I'm there for the monster fights. It's like, there is a lot that isn't the monster fights in this movie still. 2/3 of it isn't monster fights.
If it was all just monster fights, then
Yeah.
it'd be like, okay, at least this is like stupid as hell, but really fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I could get behind that.
Well, just make it like a 40-minute movie. There's just monster fights.
Yeah, but they can't even do that. That's apparently too hard.
Well, it's just like, oh, well, it's kind of the Transformers sort of effect, isn't it? Where you gotta have human characters, and it's like, why? Why can't you just have an entire Transformers movie that's animated and set on Cybertron and do that? I don't need human characters.
Or at the very least, make the human characters good.
That's it. Well, this is the thing. I've heard Bumblebee is actually okay. Which is the only Transformers movie that wasn't directed by Michael Bay, so that's interesting.
Oh, I forgot that movie came out.
Yeah, I know, it's easy to forget because Transformers, it's the 6th Transformers movie. There have been 6
think there
Transformers.
was much excitement for it after that.
Well, I mean,
after 5 movies of getting just like the worst imaginable filmmaking ever.
Well, it's like Transformers 1 is not good. It's modern. It's like at best you could call it kind of okay, but on the lower spectrum of okay. Transformers 2 is horrible. And I think that film was written in 6 weeks, which explains a lot about why it's so bad.
It's funny, Transformers 3 is the first movie that actually got me to start thinking objectively about things.
Dude, Transformers 3, man, like, it's so bad.
Like, I came out of that movie and I was like, that might have been the worst thing I've ever seen. And I had to, like, sit down for a while and rationalize why it was so horrible.
So bad.
It's so shit.
And who could have thought that it would get worse? It did. The next
Transformers 4 is by far the worst in the whole series.
That movie, man. How did they get
It
Kesley
is
Grammer?
so horrible.
How did they get Kesley Grammer to be involved in that? How did they get some good actors to be in these movies?
Michael Bay just has a lot of money, I think.
They're so like
you can't even say his other movies are good. Like Pearl Harbor is like one of the most disgustingly disrespectful movies ever made.
Yeah, Pearl Harbor is horrible, and Bad Boys is like, I don't even really like Bad Boys that much either. I know a lot of people love those movies. I'm not the biggest fan.
Yeah, Armageddon, I mean, it's entertaining, but it's otherwise really flawed.
Yeah, super cliche as well.
I've never seen 13 Hours, so I don't know about that.
I've heard of that one.
Have you heard good things about it?
Not really. No, not really. I've also noticed that, like, Transformers, all of his movies, everybody's very orange. Have you noticed this? Everybody looks very orange in his movies.
Yes, like they all got a spray tan before coming on set.
The thing is like, I don't know if I think it's the post-production, it's the color grading. And all I can think is, why is everybody orange? He's just so incompetent.
Or just looked through all of his movies and there's just none that are good.
Well, I mean, that's what he does. He I think he once said, I make movies for 13-year-old boys. Oh, God, what a crime. And it's like, wow. Is there any reason why you have to just make bad movies, though? Why can't you make good movies for teenagers?
Why why are teenagers allowed to have shitty films? Why can't they have good ones?
Well, I mean, you hear the same thing about kids' movies. Like, oh, it's a kids' movie. Who cares? It's like, well, I look at a movie like WALL-E, which is I think like a masterpiece. Like the majority of Pixar's output up to WALL-E. You look at that movie, and that's a movie that can be enjoyed by everybody, whether you're an adult or a kid. It's a great movie, regardless. Even if you don't appreciate it.
I feel the same way about Treasure Planet. It's like one of my favorite movies ever. And
are you excited for the remake?
Movies have to be bad.
That'll happen eventually.
So we're not talking about this. We're not considering it. It's not going to happen. We're not going to pretend like it's going to happen.
I really hope it's not going to happen, but I feel like it's a matter of time once they get through all the Renaissance movies, which is only going to take them a couple of years at this rate.
Look, I'm not saying that I'm a murderer or anything, but if anyone touches Treasure Planet, I might have to turn into John Wick for a little while.
It's like, you stole his car and killed this fucking movie.
Yeah, it's like, don't touch Treasure Planet, please.
I mean, I'm so unimpressed. I mean, and you look at the clips of The Lion King, we've all seen it at this point, right? The comparison between when Mufasa gets thrown off of the cliff in the original movie.
Long live the king.
Yep.
When I showed that to Mahler, we just burst out laughing.
It's so bad.
So bad. The delivery of the line is horrible. I mean, the Kimba stuff aside, because that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Looking at the original animation and the live action, it's horrible.
It's really
How could you make such a bad movie?
It's just, you're watching a National Geographic episode dubbed. That's what it feels like.
I saw a comment on that Twitter post where someone was like, if you got someone high and then told them that this was a National Geographic movie, then they would absolutely lose their minds.
It's just, the original movie is timeless. The animation is timeless. It will never age. Whereas this movie, in 10 years, it won't look so good anymore. That's just how it works.
It doesn't look good now.
It doesn't really look that great. I mean, the texture work and stuff is really good, but the actual animation and the faces and stuff is
there's barely any at all. So
like Simba looks like a fucking puppet when he's screaming at the end. When Mufasa gets thrown off the cliff. Oh,
I don't want to think about it.
Long live the king, and punches him in the face. Doesn't even give him time to realize what's happening. Just completely missing the mark.
So bad.
And then you got Pumbaa and Timon. They're not going to have the hula hoop thing, surely. Like, they're not going to do the hula hoop joke. Not the hula hoop, the hula skirt joke. You remember that one? How could it work?
Dude, that post you sent me of people speculating that Del Toro was making an Atlantis movie.
Yeah.
And he said absolutely not. I was like, oh, thank God. And then I looked at the comments of people asking him to, and it's like, no, guys.
Why does it need to be remade? Why do you need it to be remade? Why do you need real people for it to somehow be more legitimate?
I guess animation is seen as a joke with a lot of people.
Even though animation is such a craft, so meticulous and excellent.
I mean, I feel like anime's rise in popularity in no small part comes from people really wanting more animated content that the West is just unwilling to make.
Well, the thing is there's a lot you can do with animation that just doesn't work in like you think about the scenes in Death Note, where Light is riding in the Death Note and it has all these dramatic zooms and crazy shots. It's like, you couldn't do this in live action. You can only do this in animation.
I'll take a potato chip
and eat it. Or like the delete scene. Delete. And like, you see people in the comments like, if this were a live action, it'd just be a camera on a dude screaming delete while writing in a notebook. Very undramatic.
Have you seen that that clip from, it's not from the actual anime, but it's like a OVA or something of Elle's funeral.
Uh, what, you mean the deleted scene?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's not a deleted scene, it's just a part of OVA or something.
Oh, well, I mean, I've seen the scene, yeah.
Yeah. Imagine how like all the impact of that would just be lost in live action, like Light's sadistic laugh and everything.
Yeah.
Just there'd just be nothing to it.
Well, it's just because I look at something a little bit more traditional, like One Punch Man, as an it's like, how would you make that work in live action? How do you make it work? There are so many shots that would only work as an anime. Like,
I mean, a lot of the live action adaptations of anime don't work. I mean,
no,
have you seen the shots of the live action Attack on Titan?
no, I
It's
haven't.
horrifying. It's horrible. It looks disgusting.
Well, it's just because I think of One Punch Man, and I think like the impact of a lot of the punches is really exaggerated by the fact that it is an anime. There's just a lot you can do with it. Or you think about the scene. You've watched One Punch Man, right? Or no?
I haven't finished the first season yet.
Whereabouts are you up to? Just so that I know what I can't say.
Not very far. I'm like 3 or 4
Oh,
episodes
okay.
in.
Okay, that works. Like Oh, actually, this isn't really a spoiler. There's a fight where like where Saitama and Genos are like sparring, and Genos says like, you need to go all out. I need to see what you can do. And obviously Saitama's kind of like against that because he's probably gonna, he can't go all out. And there's this part where like they're fighting, and he winds up and he does this punch, and it like makes his fist massive next to Genos, and then he just stops right in front of him, and a gust of wind shoots out that destroys the cliff behind him. And it's great. And it's like, how would you do that in live action? It would look retarded. Like, it only works in anime. Or in animation, rather.
I'm so not willing to watch the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender once that starts
Netflix.
going into production.
I
mean,
that's not even the only one, man. Like, they're gonna do Cowboy Bebop, they're gonna do Akira eventually, but Taika Waititi wants to do that, so maybe that one will be okay. There are a lot of other ones that they want to do as well, and I'm so against it.
Yeah, I don't know why there's an obsession with making everything live action. Animation is just fine on its own.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we make remakes of live action movies in animation? Why is that not a thing people want to do?
It's almost like it would be really bad.
Well, it's just they're different formats, and the stories are often written to take advantage of the different format. Live action Simpsons would be shit. Live action South Park would be shit. Like, I'm sorry.
Imagine all the like really violent shit that happens in The Simpsons,
Yeah.
but trying to do that in live action.
Why You Little, and it's just a grown man strangling a child, and you're just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you start to realize, oh, this doesn't work in this context.
Well, I'm also kind of upset that there just isn't that much 2D animation in film anymore, at least in the West.
Yeah, I was saying it the other day. We really need a renaissance of 2D
I'd be very
animation.
happy. Yeah. Like, it's
and not this disgusting flash animated shit. I mean, like real handcrafted 2D animation.
Well, frame by frame, the proper frame by frame stuff.
It's like, yeah, it takes a lot of effort, but it's always, well, maybe not always, but most of the time really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just why can't we have more animation in general? Like, I don't think 3D is a good substitute for not that I'm against 3D animation, because I think Pixar's always been good when it comes to 3D animation.
It's really oversaturated now.
Yeah, everybody's doing it, whereas it would be nice to have some 2D animated films. It also means that there's sort of a loss of identity as well, because I mean, could anybody
a lot of them end up looking similar?
Well, like, what is Blue Sky's art style? Blue Sky Studios or Illumination. What's their art style?
I am not familiar with what movies Blue Sky has made.
Blue Sky made Rio, the bird one.
The what?
Rio. It had it's the one with the birds set in Rio.
I've never heard of
Oh,
this movie.
okay. What else have they
Uh,
done? Blue
whoa,
Sky, didn't
okay.
they
That's
do Ice Age? Isn't Blue Sky the guys who did Ice Age?
Blue Sky movies. Let me see. Oh yeah, they did do Ice Age.
Yeah,
I'm
and
familiar
Ice
with
Age has a
that at
style.
least.
Ice Age does have a style,
Ice,
but Ice Age is also sort of overdone. 5 movies, can you
Ice
believe it?
Age stopped being there. Wait, what?
There are
There's
5 Ice Age
five Ice
movies,
Age.
yeah.
I knew there were like 2 or 3 of them. I didn't know there were
Yeah.
5.
The first one is the best one by far.
It's the only really good one
Yeah.
from my recollection of the 2 or 3 I've actually seen. That is.
Well, I've only seen 2 or
Wasn't
3
the
of them
third
too.
one they like? Didn't the third one they like met dinosaurs or
Yeah,
whatever?
that's right.
Okay, I wish I didn't watch that. Okay, so there's 2 Rio movies, and I didn't know either of them existed. That's very
And they're
strange.
doing
Oh,
a
they made that horrible robots movie too.
Oh yeah, I remember that movie.
Wow, this is a terrible studio.
It's not a great. Well, the thing is it's like I still prefer them over Illumination because Illumination is so cynical. They just
Oh god,
they don't give a fuck.
yeah.
They don't give a fucking shit.
Sing, that's horrible. Despicable Me, Minions,
Yeah,
the Lorax, the Grinch.
Grinch.
Wow, they've made a ton of horrible movies.
And the Lorax had a lot of product placement too, which is, it's just great. A story that is about consumerism with product placement.
Dude, it all makes sense now. This came from the same studio that made the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
No, they're making a Super Mario Brothers movie. Not the original one. They're making an animated Super Mario Brothers movie soon.
Oh, did they just put this on here because of that?
Well, it's upcoming. They're going to be making it eventually. And I'm not excited for
it
it.
comes up with the original when you look at.
No, they didn't make that movie. They also made that movie Hop, the one that has is it James Marsden, the guy who's in the Sonic the Hedgehog movie?
Oh dear.
Yeah,
it does look like that's him.
He's really unlucky. The second movie with a shitty looking CGI animal.
Let me see what Marsden's actually been in. I want to see if there's anything respectable on his list. He did
X-Men. He did X-Men 1 and 2, and then 3, unfortunately.
Oh, right. He was a Cyclops, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Oh, that was a kind of rough ride.
Yeah, I know. I feel bad for him, too, because Cyclops is such a cool character.
So he was in The Notebook. That's not a good one. Enchanted. That's not a good one either. Sonic. Not a good one. Hop. Not a good one.
The thing, with Sonic is, we've talked about this, how them fixing the art style means it's not going to be such a memeable film anymore.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a shame.
Well, he was in Anchorman 2. I guess that
something.
was a funny one.
That's okay.
That's the most respectable movie he's been in, apparently.
Damn.
Aside from X-Men 2.
And now X-Men's finished too, with Dark Phoenix. Now you've seen Dark Phoenix, haven't you?
I wish I didn't.
Yeah, you don't like it, do you?
If it wasn't for the fact that I completely forgot that James Holt was in it, I would have used that as an excuse to not watch it. But I genuinely forgot that his character was even in the film.
What? Oh, yeah, he plays Beast.
Yeah, everything after Logan and Days of Future Past was like, well, I can't even say that because there was a lot of bad before that too.
Days of Future Past is not as good as I think you think it is. It's I do enjoy that movie, but it has a lot of problems.
Oh, I'm not denying it has problems. I just liked it.
Well, I mean, it's a good. It brought everything sort of full circle, but I think Logan was probably the best way to end it. But then they didn't end it on Logan. They kept going, and then they're like, Dark Phoenix is the ultimate conclusion. This is what it was leading up to. It's like bullshit. Bullshit. No, it wasn't.
I still love that they expect us to genuinely believe that 40 years have passed and they haven't aged.
Yeah, I know, right? At this point, Charles should be in his late 50s, and he still looks like a 30-year-old.
Yeah, the world building in that movie is awful. The writing.
The thing is I think it's kind of just
so bad.
I don't think it's as bad as people said it was. I still think it's better than Captain Marvel.
That's a super low
No,
bar,
I
though.
know it is. It's not a good movie. But yeah, I think that film. I mean, that film bombed anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Like that film, really did not perform well at the box office,
Which that's a good thing,
and it was really
ultimately.
expensive too. It was a really expensive movie as well.
You know, at the end of the credit sequence, as me and my friend, we were in the theater still like ranting about it as the credits were going on. At the end of the credits, it says something to the effect of, and I'm making up a bullshit number because I don't remember the actual number. This movie employed like 5,000 people. And I read that out loud and I was like, wow, 5,000 people made this horrible piece of shit, disgusting, terrible movie.
you,
Like,
you just
it
got
was
that
so
on your
bad.
you got that on your resume, and you sort of black it out when you go into the next job interview.
Do you think there's like actors that will like cross out some of the movies they've been in just because they're so embarrassed by them?
I definitely think that there are movies that people will retroactively say that they didn't like. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people who were in Dark Phoenix come out and say, "Yeah, it was bad." I mean, it happens. It'll probably happen for other movies too, but it's only really for the movies that are universally considered to be bad, as opposed to the movies that are bad. Like nobody's gonna come out and say Captain Marvel was shit, even though it was, because enough people like it. Um, at least
I
that's
want
how I
the
view
Don to come out and say that.
it.
If he actually did that, then I'd be just so happy for
The
him.
Don deserves his own movie, his own video game, his own everything.
The Don deserves to play Beric Dondarrion when they inevitably remake Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's probably gonna happen eventually. Yeah.
Not for a long time, though.
You been playing any games lately? I know you've been playing Metro.
Oh, yeah. You know, I've been trying to make this Metro Exodus review,
Mm-hmm.
but for some reason, I don't know if a Metro patch or a GeForce patch, like one of the drivers, but it's running really badly now for some
Uh,
reason.
hmm.
Um, and I don't know why, because it used to run perfectly fine, but now I'm having all these issues with actually, like the game starts and everything, and I can perform basic functions. The problem is that it's like there's just this random input lag that didn't used to be there.
Yeah.
And at first I thought it might have just been like a bad driver or some update or something, or maybe there was something wrong with my computer because that it's happened before, and then I just have to reset the PC and reinstall everything, which I mean it's not that big of a deal. It's an annoying
Mm-hmm.
thing to go through, but not impossible to deal with. So I reset my PC, but it's still happening, and I was like, is this affecting other games? It's affecting none of the other Metro games. It's not affecting Titanfall 2, and it's not affecting any of the other games I have installed. It's just Metro Exodus. And I reverted back like 4 or 5 drivers to where I expect it was acting normally in the past, but it's not working still. It's still really tismy,
Maybe
which is
that's a game
annoying
issue.
because I wonder if it's like some Metro Exodus update and they have to roll out another one for it to fix itself.
Mm-hmm.
I've posted stuff on the Steam discussion page, like asking, is anyone else having this problem? But it doesn't seem like anyone else is. So I'm wondering if it's either an. Well, I think it might be like when Sekiro first released, like some PCs with very specific hardware weren't running it correctly.
Yeah. Yep.
I wonder if like there's some part of the latest Exodus patch that's weirdly incompatible with my specific setup or something.
Okay.
I
Right.
don't I don't know. I don't have anything to go on. All I know is that this is the only game that is being affected, and rolling back the GeForce drivers doesn't seem to fix it. So until it gets fixed, I can't actually record any gameplay of it
Have you
to
recorded any?
well, originally I did, and then I just had this moment to where I was like, do I even really want to continue doing YouTube at this point? And
Right.
then I ended up deleting those, which wasn't
Oh.
well. Here's the thing: I didn't have much recorded in the first place. I
Okay.
had maybe like 20 minutes of footage,
Right.
but I this video is going to be like almost 3 hours long, so that's nothing. But now I can't record anything because then it looks terrible because of the input lag. And disabling VSync kind of sort of fixes it. The problem is that I have a good rig, but it's not a great rig. So it can go up to like 300 FPS, but then in the more demanding areas of the game, it can go back down to like 60.
Okay.
And even though 60 and 300 are both great, with the disparity, when it goes from 300 FPS to 60 FPS, that's super jarring.
Yeah.
It's like going from 60 FPS to like 10.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes unplayable at that point.
Oh, all right.
Even
Damn.
lowering the settings doesn't fix it. So,
Well, I mean, what you could do is you could put in a lot of effort and just put a still image of like Metro Exodus in the center of the screen and just talk for 3 hours.
I could do that.
Or better yet, just open up a link on Google Chrome and just click on the picture and just have it in the center of the screen and just talk.
Or I could do what some of the more popular guys are doing, which is set up a webcam, don't make a script, and just ramble for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then say, like, favorite, and subscribe.
Or loop trailer footage. Just loop trailer footage. And that's all you need to do.
It disappoints me that my highest viewed video is literally just trailer footage.
Oh, well, you got to do what you got to do to beat that YouTube algorithm.
Yeah.
Speaking
but
of...
I mean,
Oh, yeah? Go ahead.
No, I mean, with this Exodus video, I don't want to do a half-assed job with it. I think that I've put enough time and investment into this that I want to make it a good video.
Yeah, of course.
So until it gets fixed, I'm kind of at a standstill with it, unfortunately.
You got any other videos you want to work on, though, in the interim?
I have no idea. I only just finished the Exodus script, and it's 30,000 words, which is roughly equivalent to 3 hours.
You wrote a novella for Metro Exodus, basically.
Yeah, I really care about this game.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's good. It's like, I want to see more of this really in-depth, impassioned critique of things. I
was really dedicated to making a review of the game that no one else had made.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the reviews I've seen are either just rambles that don't have any actual substance to it. IGN, Jim Sterling, GameSpot, you know the rest. And others are just coming at it from like a purely sequel standpoint from, the other games.
Mm-hmm.
But I came at it from the standpoint of both the games and the books. And I've said a lot in the past that Metro 2033 is my favorite book ever. Not the best by any stretch, but it's my favorite. So I have a lot of investment in this series,
mm-hmm.
and I wanted to make the best analysis of the game that I possibly could using all the resources I have to explain all the little nuances of the plot and the characters that no one else was really putting any effort into.
I think it's good to have a target of like, I want to make the best of this that I can on YouTube. I think that's a good bar to set. At least in terms of actually taking YouTube seriously, because I really get the impression that people are like, oh, it's just YouTube. It's just YouTube, it's whatever. As though you can't make really great, timeless content on YouTube.
Yeah, as though Hellbenders isn't...
Yeah, like exactly, right.
Parts of YouTube.
I mean, there's so much
spoilers
good stuff.
ahead by Lyle isn't bad, or great.
Just effort, Just that's all we need. Just more effort and a YouTube algorithm or whatever it is that tries to incentivize good as opposed to just long,
Yeah.
It is really a shame that YouTube has made it to where you can't make short videos though. Because I feel like there are a lot of channels that will pad their content to get it past like 10 or 15 minutes so they can put in mid-rolls and things like that. And it's a little bit transparent in some instances.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Mahler's shown you plenty of the videos of people that say absolutely nothing and just try and get that 10 minutes in, even though it's really only about a 2 or 3 minute video.
Well, yeah, my view is make it as long as it needs to be, and if it ends up being 3 hours long, like your Metro Exodus review will be, then so be it. And if it only ends up being 2 minutes, then so be it, It just as long as it needs to be. That's how I think it should be approached.
Yeah, I mean, I've went back and edited the script twice now, so I made it as short as I could make it, but
Mhm.
there's so much I need to talk about from a functional level and from a narrative level. And I need to explain everything in as much detail as I can because I've learned that not explaining things enough will make people think something completely different from what you intended.
Yeah, of course.
So I need to be as explicit as possible with my explanations for why I liked one thing or didn't like another.
Yeah, no, exactly. But for anybody who wants to watch this video when it's eventually out, you have any places you want to plug, Wolf, as we wrap it up?
I have a channel that you shouldn't watch.
That's where it's going to be, though. How are they meant to watch it if they can't watch it?
Don't watch it. It'll probably be terrible no matter how.
No, don't say that. It'll be good.
I make terrible content, guys.
He makes very good content, guys. Don't listen to him.
Listen to me. I make bad videos. You
Um,
should probably unsub from
I
me.
guess you don't have a Twitter to plug, which I'm kind of envious of. Some days I wish I was banned from Twitter just so that I could stop using it.
Oh, dude, getting banned from Twitter was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Like, what a worthless platform to waste my time on.
Alright, everybody, thank you for watching Cosmoronic Episode 4, and I'll see you next time.